Hello everybody for another video cast from thefreelanceteacher.com. I'm Doug Marola and welcome again to our short discussions. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about another podcast that I was listening to, a very, very good one. There's a guy named Brett Veinotte, and I believe he's in New Hampshire, and he and a professor, Thaddeus Russell of the Renegade University, yes, you heard that correct, we're having a talk about academic conformism. And Russell came up with a concept, as did the host, that a lot of people become confused by, and that is the use of force. And I have this come up with my students a lot as well, because they can't understand why people are so oblivious to the use of force. And here's what I mean. I work in the bad neighborhood, right? I don't have, I don't know, over the last 15 years, the number of white students I've had is in the single digits. And so the school is, it's a lively place, to put it mildly. And our student body recognizes instantly when somebody is using force to push them around. So our students, when they get older and they begin working and they have jobs and they work for X amount of dollars per hour on the books, and then they get a check and they see everything that is taken out of it, they don't see it as, and neither do I, I'm one of the few people who agrees with them, they don't see it as, let me throw some dollars this way towards the government for the greater good so that I can fulfill the social contract that I did not sign. They don't see it that way. They see it as it should be seen. And they see it as, here's money that's taken out of my check that I worked for, that I never got to touch, that went towards the government, that if I don't pay or refuse to pay, people with weapons will show up eventually after a bunch of notices in the mail and take me. They'll have a gun and I won't, and they'll take me and they will put me in a cage. They will lock me in a cage. Now, that's what happens, right? If you don't pay tax, it's not like, well, you have the right political views, so you don't have to pay. Or they don't see it as, well, this is a choice, and if I don't pay them, then I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, but it's all good, right? I mean, we have the right political views and we read the right magazines and things like that. I read The Nation and the New York Times. Therefore, if I don't pay these things, well, let's not talk about that, right? We're just going to talk about the good things and the social contract, and it's all wonderful, and where's the rainbow? And if that last bit of chatter on my part sounded confusing, that's because it was supposed to be. Because my teenage students, and I understand this very well too, understand that laws are enforced by using force and by using violence. So they get it. And Thaddeus Russell came up with a wonderful example of the majority of the people who call themselves liberals today don't understand this, that the use of violence is used to enforce laws. It's really that simple. And I use tax as one of those things where my criticisms are, the people who criticize me say, well, putting in a cage and using guns and badges to make you get in that cage, right? You're using rough words, right? If you just use different language, it's not so bad. Well, I'll posit that calling it tax is deceptive and wrong, because just because I call it tax doesn't mean that someone won't eventually show up with a weapon to take you, put you in a cage, and lock you up, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with those words in their accuracy. That's what happens. And it's one of those things that, the people who are good at writing and wording things, like Russell worded it perfectly. There are people who don't understand that you have to pay tax. It is force. It's the law. And if you don't do it, violence will be used against you, and you will be forcibly taken and put in a cage. All right, I'll call it a prison cell. Is that better? And they will lock it with some sort of device, probably electronic locks. So Russell and Vinod on the School Sucks podcast worded it perfectly. And my students, oddly enough, and there's a lot of academic malfeasance going on in my district. Students come to me at age 14 and they don't know very little and their literacy skills are terrible. But they understand force and violence. And they recognize instantly that that's not a great thing. It's really one of the differences between a neighborhood where I work and your generally well-off middle class and higher academic moneyed class of liberal left, where they don't understand, hey, these are disagreements, right? But if you have a disagreement, people can talk about it. If I disagree with a law, violence will be used against me. And it's funny to see who understands that concept and who doesn't. And the tap dancing and the tiptoeing around the tulips when you word it this way is pretty interesting to watch. And the teenagers at my somewhat low performing school understand it instantly. And people who live well and really should know better and think more clearly about the use of violence against others and the moral repugnancy of it, well, they don't seem to get it. And that's very strange. But I guess it's part of the human condition where, as Orwell said, the hardest thing to see is the thing that is right in front of your face. That's it for today. Hope to talk with you guys soon. I'll talk to you next time. This is Doug Marola with The Freelance Teacher, thefreelanceteacher.com. Talk to you next time.